You are the sum total of your 5 closest people. I promise you that. And
it's almost creepy. I've seen people do this, and I've done it with people. Like, if I followed you around for 3 or 4 days,
you're going to take on my traits.
You didn't know I was there. I could tell you what tomorrow was going to look like for you. I can tell you how pissed off you were going to be or how moderate you'd be. I'd tell you whether or not you had needed coffee to get out of bed. Like, I could tell you almost anything about you by watching the 5 people that you interact with the most. Yeah.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Talk Hard Podcast. I said it. I did it. Look, man, we're only like 20-some episodes in it, and I have finally got that we are called Talk Hard Podcast. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marty Norman.
Closer to 18, but yeah, we can indulge a little bit.
My name is Marty Norman, and I am the beautiful and wonderful. I'm the beauty of this show, and I'm going to introduce you to the brains. His name is Brian Gordon. What's up, Brian?
Somebody gets a little new grill, and all of a sudden he's the beauty of everything.
Welcome to the show where everybody in the show has dentures, false teeth, crowns, or veneers.
Mine didn't break.
So, funny story, ladies and gentlemen. So I flew out to Texas.
Okay, that's not true. My bottoms broke, but go ahead.
Did they really already?
Well, I left them in my pants because they were coming out, and I washed my clothes, and when I got out, they were in like 3 pieces.
Bro, you have arrived when you put in your teeth in your jean pockets.
Hey, man, when you got shit to do, you got shit to do. I just got to go. So I put them in my pants pocket and took off.
Hey, $20 is $20.
Right? Do what you got to do.
Dude. So I hope Chris can fix this a little bit because my teeth are not this white, but I'm looking at myself right now, and they look like, you ever seen that movie Friends? Well, not the movie, the show Friends, when he falls asleep with his whitening strips on. That's what I look like right now.
Planar tracking.
Chris Koroff Cop fixed that for us. Anyway, guys, so I went out to Texas to see Dr. Kenny, man. Dr. Kenny is he is probably one of the best dentists in the country. And he makes he makes content, he makes videos on TikTok and YouTube, and he's hilarious. He's got a good sense of humor, and what attracted me most to him is he cussed a lot in his video. He cussed it all, period, right? A dentist cussing and making funny content was great. So I went out, flew out, I got 10 crowns put in the front. These are my temporary. The day that I got home, the night that I got home, I flew back from Texas, right? I got this new temporary grill going on. The real ones actually have gold and diamonds all through them, by the way. You got to wait and see that. But anyway, so I took a nap when I got home, right? Took a nap, woke up, and I have a drawer next to my bed, right? This is I'm revealing too much. A lot of people have drawers next to their bed, and I guarantee you 90% of you will not admit what's in your drawer next to your bed.
Okay.
Right?
Mine's got a gun in it.
What about the bottom drawer, though? That's the one I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So mine has candy in it. So
okay.
Yeah. So I took a bite of candy, half asleep, right? It's like a nougat candy type.
Yep.
Yeah, so I took a bite of it and broke it. Day one. Broke it right there. Chris, can you do like a Zoom thing? Right there.
Zoom here.
Okay.
Anyway, enough.
Okay, so
we're old, we're addicts, and we're in recovery. What do you want, man? I smoked my teeth away when I was young. Whatever.
Yeah, so I was actually, we'll get into the real topic here in a minute, but the topic that hit my head that we'll talk about some other times is, do you remember the DARE program?
I do. Yes.
So the acronym should have been drugs are really expensive.
Okay, but I'm having actual trouble remembering what it was.
Drug abuse resistance education.
Okay, so it's a total fail from what I remember, right?
They said don't do that. This is what's going to happen. And I was like, F you, I'll tell you what'll happen after I do them all.
Yeah, like,
because that's just what happens.
Epic failure,
yeah.
Right?
So they brought in all these drugs and they laid them on the counter, and this one, and this the yada yada yada.
Steal the pipes and shit.
Right.
I was like, man.
If they would have just told me how much money my life would have cost me between the drugs that I had to do and the medical care that I needed afterwards from losing my teeth and the rest of my body falling apart,
yeah,
it would have really actually changed things for me.
Might have altered your path.
It definitely would have come into consideration. Because I have probably done enough dope to buy a house.
Guarantee it. I could have bought a boat.
Yeah.
could have bought a 100-foot yacht.
No, a house in another state besides California. So where I was at, I was like, that's like half a bedroom. We're good. So I didn't care
Drugs
so
are probably
much.
cheap out there too, right?
Cheaper because we're close to Mexico.
Yeah. Tijuana.
And I had some friends.
Tijuana.
Yeah. So when you get down in those levels of people, yeah, I mean, it's transportation, baby. The farther away it goes, the more expensive it's got to be.
And the more stepped on it gets, from my understanding.
Well, yeah.
Especially by the time it gets to Indiana. It gets to Indiana, and it's been stepped on 47 times. And it's still really good.
So you brought up desperation.
The gift of desperation, man. I mean, that's... so as you guys know, we're in recovery in this show, right? Like we're two men in long-term recovery. We got Chris Corn off the cob over there who's in long-term recovery. Say hi, Chris.
Hi. Sober for years.
I love Chris. Anywho, so I had a conversation with one of my staff earlier today, and she was talking about the gift of she was talking about the power of desperation, and I always refer to it as the gift of desperation.
Okay.
Look, man, I remember there was like my life. I used drugs and alcohol for 20 plus years. For the last 10 of those years, I absolutely hated doing it. Like I hated everything that it made me be, that it brought me. I hated who it made me become. I hated where it gotten me. I hated even. I got to the point where I hated even, because we remember the first high, right? That first time you got high, it was like the birds started chirping, the clouds parted, the sea, just like the sunshine came out.
I thought I had arrived. Now, granted, I was 12, so I didn't understand what was actually happening, but I thought I had arrived. Like,
wow.
I was dealing with this whole space in my head where there was a lot going on in the neighborhood. The kids were being
Especially
weird.
being 12.
Yeah, we were a lot of boys in the neighborhood, so there was a lot of weird sexual, like, kids
Puberty.
sharing porno mags and jerking off in the pool bathroom. It was weird. Like, I'll be straight up. It was strange. But then all these, I come from a family, we went to church all the time. Now I'm like, well, am I gay? Because, back then we're talking about early 90s, that was not as acceptable as it is today. So
it was
like
completely the opposite of acceptable.
Completely the opposite. So that's going through my head. And then it's like, now I have AIDS for sure. I'm dying of AIDS. This is going through my head at the same time. So I might be of a different sexual preference and I'm dying of AIDS. 1,000%. Like, this is what's happening. So this is what's going on in my head all day long, and then I get high. And for the first time, everything stopped.
That quiet.
It was super quiet, and it was funny, and I wasn't, like, worried about anything. I was having a good time. Everything I was thinking about prior to was completely out the window, and now I'm wondering when the Martians are going to land. And I found the
when they do,
meaning of life at 12 years old.
Yeah, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
I thought I'd arrived.
Yes, and I'm similar. Like, I went through a lot of childhood stuff. My parents were addicts and alcoholics. It was a broken home, trailer park type scenario, right? And then when I remember I stole a joint, I stole half a joint from my dad, and I remember the first time I'd seen it in movies. I've watched them do it. I didn't know how to roll, and I was by myself. They were out, and I got a piece of notebook paper. With the lines on it, the ink lines, right? I got a piece of notebook paper, and I folded this thing up into which was, 85% paper joint. Right? Yep. And I smoked that, and I was so freaking high. I went in and tried to make noodles, like, on the stove. You just put the noodles in the water, and I fell asleep, and it burnt, and I woke up to the alarm going off in the house smoking, and I, but the feeling I had was very similar. Like, I had found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was amazing. It was epic, right?
At that age, it's the cure.
It was.
Like, nothing else stops what's going on in your head besides that, because there's no other education for it. There's nothing else to make sense of it. And coming up where I was raised, where it was like, you don't do drugs and you don't take pills and you don't go to therapy and you don't, like, this was hardcore living. Like, if you're not broken, you don't go to the hospital. Like, if you're bleeding, rub some dirt on it. Like, that's actually the only times, right? Like, the only time I saw a hospital was when I actually needed a surgery. period. So
in my home, it was like the bone's broken, yes, but it's not outside the skin. We'll put a
we'll figure it out, right? So when you come from that, there's no education on it being okay to not be okay. Like you weren't allowed to not be okay when I was growing up.
Well, and
that made it okay.
This goes back to the dare thing, because what I had found out at that moment is like I was at that early childhood development, 12, 13, like yourself, and I realized that I hated my parents for what they were, and the fighting and the chaos and not knowing, just no stability, and leaving the house at 3 a.m. because a fight was going on and having to run, just all this stuff, right? And then the DARE program was going on at the same time. They come into the school and tell you, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad, okay? Right? Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Drugs suck. And then I smoked that joint. And I was like, these motherfuckers are liars,
you are
bro.
Full of shit, sir.
Beep. These they're liars. This is great. This is awesome. This is, wow. Welcome. Mm-hmm. I will do this for the rest of my life. Now, granted, not knowing... any kind of circumstance, any kind of things going to go bad in my life, like this is cool. This is what I want to do, right? Not knowing that pot would later develop into alcohol into cocaine into crack into meth into heroin pills and everything else, right?
Well, I survived the weed, right? Because they say they're bad and you'll die and all these things and you're killing brain cells. And I was like, well, am barely passing school because I just don't want to go anyway. So what do I care, right?
What
so
brain cells?
Nothing made sense at that time. So it just, you kept getting more curious and you're like, okay, drinking because they tell you not to. So I was like 3 years old. My mom said, don't touch that. It's hot. I swear I looked right at her and I put my hand right on the heater. That's just how I'm wired. Don't tell me not to do something because you know what it's going to do to me, because that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
I'll tell you when I'm done.
And then you flipped your hand around to see if it would burn the other side.
I just stuck the other hand on it. Like, it was, again, that doesn't make any sense. It's just how I'm wired. Don't tell me what you know about my life because I'm the one that's got to live in it. And since I was little,
yep.
That's just how I am actually wired. So that moment turned into more experience, right? Like, well, I survived that, so let's just keep pushing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to push it until, well, if I die, well, then, hey, it's going to be too late when that happens, so I'm going to keep going until hopefully it doesn't.
That even has another layer to it, too. Because when you get into the drug scene and people tell you not to do drugs this way, because you're okay as long as you don't do it this way,
mm-hmm.
Which, if you break that down, you're okay as long as you don't shoot it.
Right.
Very first thing I wanted to do. I grew up as my idols being Lane Staley from Alice in Chains and Guns N' Roses and Zach Wilde from the Stone Temple Pilots, Jane's Addiction. All these people did drugs.
Yeah, I wasn't big on shooting, but it's really hard to stick a needle up your butt and hide it. And so when I would drive around,
it's
I had
not
a spot.
That hard, actually. Well, trust me when I tell you.
I felt like it was going to be, so I didn't shoot a lot.
Chris, tell him it's incredibly easy.
The easiest thing I've ever done.
It's the smallest thing he's ever done, too. Okay. But those were my idols, right?
Yeah.
So, and I knew from basically, I guess, maybe even younger, but I knew from the time I smoked that first joint that I wanted to be, like, it was cool to me. Like, living that lifestyle that I seen, and I think kids nowadays see this stuff too in hip hop and rock and roll and movies, of course, and they think it's cool because you got people like Weezy pulling it off, and all he does is do drugs and lean, and he's a successful millionaire.
That's the stupid part is we feel like he's pulling it off, but if you knew behind the scenes,
I don't think. Unless he's a Martian, I don't think he can do the things that he's done and do the amount of drugs that he speaks about doing. I don't think it's possible. There's several artists who have burnt way the hell out from it. And if you look at the real artists, you look at Kurt Cobain, you look at Scott Wilde, you look at Lane Staley, you look at these people who actually did the amount of drugs and that they didn't talk about, they died, right? And that's the reality of it. And I would love for a lot of you younger people out there to really think about that. Like these people that you see successful hip hop artists, rock and roll artists, they're not doing what they're talking about doing. They are grinding every day and honing in their their talent. They are working on it. They are touring. They are making music. They are doing this. They're not doing that. They're not sitting around drinking lean every day.
They're not dumb. They know what sells.
They do.
If I look cool to you and I tell you because I know you're doing a lot of drugs and I'm doing even more and you already think I'm cool, of course you're going to buy my shit.
Yeah. Cause
It's marketing. Break it down across the whole entire platform of everything that's going on in the world is marketing.
Correct.
You master marketing, you've mastered something. But you were talking about desperation, so...
Well, so I call it a gift.
Okay.
I call it a gift because for me, and you may differ for this. I know we've talked about the power of desperation. In other words, we've used the fact that, rock bottoms, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, the power of desperation, when I used to come into the room several years ago, into the rooms, they would, you would talk and he would kind of open up and you would talk about, or I would talk about, or somebody would talk about the fact that they still wanted to get high or they still wanted to drink. And, I have cravings and I really I miss this part of the lifestyle. And they would tell you, first off, they'd say, well, go out and try some more controlled drinking and see how it works out for you. And then they would say stuff like, I wish you the gift of desperation. And when you're in early recovery, you're like, F you, how dare you,
right.
It's not something I learned till later, but it was very valuable for me because I can remember walking down the street and I've been on a hard run for years, but really hard run for the last, 4 or 5 months to where I was living in a trap house, right? The type of trap house with no running water. Nobody knows whose name is on the lease. If there is a lease, somebody had abandoned it years ago type place. Literally, we had to, middle of the night, tweaked out of our minds, go to the neighbor's house and steal water out of the faucet in a 5-gallon bucket to flush the toilet when it got full enough to the point. Anywho, right? But I can remember I would scrape change. I was at the point where my hustle was completely busted. I didn't have a hustle anymore. Nobody wanted to mess with me. I didn't have connections, and I was homeless, living in this place when they would let me. I was sleeping in the closet on a pile of dirty clothes that had infested with bed bugs and cockroaches and broken needles and just very typical what you would think of a trap house, right? And I remember walking down this road. I had maybe $8 somehow, some way, and I was walking to the liquor store and just looking at the ground, and I was so, I would have never used the word at the time. I was so desperate. I was so broken. I was so hopeless. And I remember shaking so bad to the point where, your eyeballs would shake, your eyeballs would flutter, and I couldn't hardly keep my vision. And I was just like, man, begging. I was, having that conversation in your head, right? I'm just begging, like, there's got to be more. Is there more? I don't want to live this way anymore. I want to die. Of course, that conversation happened every morning on the way to the liquor store until I got my bottle, took a big pull or 5 off of it, and then I didn't think that way anymore, right? I had found my medicine. I had found it. But that desperateness got me questioning this place I used to walk by all the time where people were outside. What it turned out to be was a recovery clubhouse, a sober living clubhouse, right? And there'd be people out there just drinking, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and laughing and having a good time. And I absolutely hated them, right? But that gift of desperation, I was so desperate that I hated them so much because they had something that I didn't understand, but I was so desperate that I decided that I was so miserable and so broken. I walked up to them and asked, like, what are you guys doing? Who are you? And like, I had no idea, right? That gift of desperation led me to getting sober. Long story short, but there's been many times in my life when I've been completely desperate what I mean by that is, like, I never would have gotten clean and sober if it wasn't for being desperate, if it wasn't for consequences, and for me, if it wasn't for that rock bottom of complete, just basically hopeless, right?
So I fully agree with you for starters, because when you break down, I just understand it differently now.
Okay.
Because when you break down the psychology of how it works and the brain being efficient model, it's not going to change unless it has to. That's
pain-
where the gift of desperation and pain being the admission, the price of admission, right? Like that is because as human beings, that's how we're wired. Okay. We make the abnormal normal until it just is not sustainable. And then we don't have a choice. It's either change or die.
Yes.
That's literally where the brain will finally go, okay, shit, something's got to stop. That's sad to me.
Some of us, that threshold of pain is immense, right?
For the people that are in there that are talking, man, I just wish I could get high again. It's hard for me because I hear some of their stories and I'm like, man, you consider that bad. And on your level, I can't understand it because I haven't gone through that, but I don't consider that bad.
Right.
Right. So their pain hasn't reached a level yet because trust me, when you go from where I was when this whole thing started, and I did the roller coaster game, right? Because I was on and off, and then it got bad around like 25, 26 years old. But I did the roller coaster and lived in the game, and it was just one of those places where I'm like, man, I've been through it all. So for you to say you've been through hard times, like I've been at the top of the world making stupid, like, you money.
That's a lot of money, by the way.
Like, I didn't have to think about money. I would just buy stuff. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like millions of dollars, but to me, it was money because I reached a moment where I never looked at my bank account.
Yeah.
I just knew there was going to be money in there. Mm-hmm. And I knew when I looked at it, I would just spend more of it. So I stopped looking at it. That's a different. And then from there to sleeping in my car. So when you go from the height of having what they call the American dream, even though I hated it, all the way down to literally sleeping in your car because now your dad doesn't trust you because when you moved out and when you were visiting for a while and you took off, he found a bunch of your like snail trails from all the heroin you were smoking in the shed. You thought you hit them all, but now they've all been found. You know what I mean? Like if you went to my parents' old house today, I'm sure somewhere, even though they've sold
there's
it,
a corner bag
there
somewhere.
Is some dope somewhere that I hope no one ever finds.
Somebody's dog will kick it in and be like, it ain't my dope. I swear.
But for me, the desperation, I just know that it doesn't have to. And the bigger change comes when you don't have to change and you make it happen. That is way more difficult for me than I either have to change or die. Like that hard work is hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting it, but it is much harder to have things going your way and say, I want more.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think everybody, so rock bottoms for one person, rock bottoms are different, right?
Absolutely.
Like some guy might steal $20 off his grandma and the guilt and shame just be his rock bottom. Or somebody gets arrested for a DUI and that's his rock bottom and it'll change his life.
Right. Like I OD'd in my bedroom and got up and got high.
Right.
And then I got fired from a company that I used to operate, and having my dad look at me and tell me that was my bottom. So it's just, everybody's got their different levels. I was like, it's not that bad to OD in your room.
It's a Tuesday.
I woke up, who cares?
It's a fucking Tuesday. But let me ask you though, like when that rock bottom, quote unquote rock bottom, you got fired from a company that you helped create and that you were running, like did you stop right then? Like that moment?
No. I knew that it had to happen. So it was like a mixture of things. So I got in an accident about 2 weeks prior to that where I fell asleep at the wheel doing about 80.
You didn't fall asleep. You nodded out.
Yeah, all the way out. Definitely. Like, don't get me wrong. I passed out would probably be a better term, or nodded off.
Okay.
Hit a big rig doing about 80 that was moving because in California they have to stay in the slow lane. So I was in I merged over in the slow lane apparently, and I hit the big rig so hard he thought he hit the overpass. Like it jarred his truck loose. And then I went off of the freeway, we call them in California, and hit a parked Caltrans truck. Thank God they were all on the other side.
A what truck?
California Transportation Authority, Caltrans.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
for us laymen's out here,
I came to and thought I was dead, right? So like all these things had happened, and I was like, damn, man, that sucks. But then, of course, as soon as I got to the hotel while I was waiting for a ride, I was getting high.
Yeah.
Like, again, all these things came up to it. And then what happened while I was in the hotel room waiting for someone after I crashed, I called my mom, who has been there for me my entire life. I broke my arm in 2005 in Arizona, And she got in her car the minute she heard about it, and she got there before I woke up from surgery. That's my mom.
Gotcha.
Now, that same lady who I barefooted when I was like 7 years old and broke my collarbone, beat the ambulance. Like, that's my mom.
Right.
Didn't answer the phone.
She had enough.
She was done. You want to kill yourself? I don't want to watch.
Now, let me ask you this too. Did she get with Al-Anon or anything like that prior to that, or she just came up with this on her own? Like,
she just was like, I'm
not gonna watch you do this any longer.
Yeah. She was like, I know there's nothing I can do anymore.
I'm done.
So if you want to kill yourself, I'm just not going to watch.
Okay.
So that, and then literally days later, my dad, who we're best friends, I'm real close to my parents. He knocks on the door and says, "That's it. Can't do it anymore. Like, you don't have a job." I was like, what? It was just this moment where I'm standing in my warehouse of a company that I'm operating while working for my dad at the same time because I'm trying to build it. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, for me, the rock bottom is putting my dad through that. Like, I don't like firing strangers, but I have to fire your kid because I think back to, like, I could have destroyed their whole entire... You imagine if I would have hit somebody?
Oh, yeah.
It would have been over for my whole family. My brother was helping run the company, like, over. And when all that struck, that was rock bottom for me. And I was like, okay, something's got to change. So I called my other brother who lived out in Indiana, and I said, I'm not doing good. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. And it's not, locations don't change what's happening. But what it did was it forced me to humble my reality, because what I was offered out here was a very low wage, and to start from the bottom as somebody that worked his whole entire life I started a company. I was like 19 years old. It's a carpet cleaning company. I owned a pressure washing company. Then I took over my family's company. It did very well. Even high, I was still operating a company that was doing all right. Like, you could still call people in California today and they would want me to hydro dip all their car parts. Like, I had Mercedes sitting in there while I'm getting high in the bathroom and I'm working on this dude's car. Like, I had stuff. And then I didn't. And it was like, I needed that humbling experience of, I want to start. I need to start. Not I want to start. I need to start from the bottom.
Yeah. I feel like it's a lot easier, like you said, when you have no choice, right? Yeah. And I got it out the mud too. Like, I started off walking to work. I literally, when I got into this recovery home, I walked an hour to work. And that's at 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And I made $7.50 an hour. And at the end of the week, after paying child support and paying my rent at the sober living, I had like $10, $20 tops to my name every week. Like, I got it from the bottom, and I started. And at the time, while I was grateful, I was still like, this sucks. Like, I need to make money. I can't. People are going out on the weekends. People are doing stuff with their kids, and I'm just like, I can't. But I was grateful. I was, and I latched on to the gratitude that I had because I was sober. I was free. I wasn't in jail or prison. I was physically feeling good, emotionally feeling good. But, the the desperation, while I feel for people who try to get sober without it, because I feel like it's incredibly easy to lose if you don't have that desperate moment where you're just like, I got no choice but to live or die, and when people come into meetings, like he's talking about a minute ago, people come into meetings and they're like, I still think about getting high, I still crave getting high or drinking. I just look at them and I'm like, man, that's gotta suck.
It just hasn't been, most of the times when those people are in their first year.
Yeah, or first
'cause
3
if
months.
been, like, when you've been doing it as long as we had, you know what I mean? Like, it took past a year before I even felt normal.
Oh, 1,000%.
Like, I was like, I would get chills randomly. Like, my
Dreams.
nerves were all kinds of jacked up.
I
Like,
had a dream every night about smoking crack.
yeah, my nerves were like, oh, we get to live again? You want to feel something? Okay, I'm going to give it all to you right now. And it was a wild ride. And those people, and me too, there were times when I was like, I know what I technically could do to stop this rush of anxiety and this rush of, like, it was just so unsettling, like paranoia, and like you feel like you're going a little crazy. So I do understand it. But like now, like, there is literally no way in hell
Right.
that I would touch it again. Like I said last week, like this was not fun. And I told the dentist, no pain meds.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Like, I don't care. I've been through worse. It is not worth it. Now, I know that that's not the problem, but that feeling,
Well,
it scares me more than anything.
well, because you're going to like it
Because you don't realize you're there until it's too late.
every time.
Like, I didn't wake up one day and go, I want to be a drug addict today. That'll be fun.
Wait a minute. Stop the show. Like, you became a drug addict, and it's not what you wanted to be as a child.
Right. Like, people don't get that. So my desperation was just different. And now my desperation comes from, I use what I'm grateful for at the bottom to where I've gotten to today I am enough.
Love that.
But I will always want more. Like, I'm satisfied. I'm thankful for if I died today, I would be happy. You'd say I lived a great life. I saw everything I wanted to see.
I think there's a whole movement of things happening like that right now where people get to a level and they say, you know what? I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough. You know? I seen where I can't think of his damn name. I seen where he said it. He retired from show business. He retired from movies, and that's what he said. He's like, I've done enough. I have enough, and I am enough. And he just wants to enjoy his life.
Which is legitimately fair. I have enough. The difference with me is I'm driven by the chase.
Well, and I wonder if that's an alcoholic addict trait, because you said I am enough, and I battle this in my head constantly that I'm not. You know, it's that I always talk about the conversation. Conversation and hear the scenarios that's played out, the conversation, and a lot of it's negative for some reason. Now, if I'm aware of it, if I'm consciously aware of what's going on in here, I can switch it, right? I could be like, okay, no, hold up, man, that's a scenario that will never play out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could spend all day thinking about something I'm going to do tonight, tomorrow, or next week, and play every possible bad scenario out of how it's going to go. And
that's the problem.
Oh, it's just right.
We battle non-existent demons
all the time.
More people do that than people realize. Like, you worry about a problem that might happen,
and 9.9 times out of 10, mm-hmm. it never comes to fruition, mm-hmm. ever for me. And that's experience, and that's me having the knowledge of the experience and knowing that fact right there, and still doing it constantly.
Well, the problem for most people is that when they think about it, they're so involved in it that they create it. Mm. So then they're like, well, see, I was right. Well, of course you were right. You literally caused it. So you're gonna be right.
I'm with you. You can make shit happen like that.
And they're like, there's no way that that's actually how it works. And if you can shift someone's mind into a space where you can get what you want if you create it, mm-hmm. it's life-changing.
Yeah, because then you can know. Then you know you can create anything.
Right.
You can create your whole entire world, everything. And I think it's important for you guys, if you don't have somebody in your life, mainly a lot of somebody's in your life, that can redirect you and see when you're thinking outside, you know, when you're in a negative mindset, or you're behaving negatively, or you're constantly complaining, or this isn't fair, or this or that. You need to have, and I show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future. So you need to have them 5 friends. That's a metaphor. You can have 10, you can have 2. You need to have them friends in your life who will call you out on that bullshit and try to help redirect you, because sometimes I'm not aware of it, and I can do it for days until somebody says, hey, bro, come on. What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
Well, you got to clear that up for people. Tell me the 5 people that you deal with the most. That could be people at work. They're not necessarily your friends, but they do inspire your day or not inspire your day. Like,
whoever the 5 people
that you interact with the most will dictate the way your life will go.
You are the sum total of your 5 closest people. I promise you that. And
it's almost creepy. I've seen people do this, and I've done it with people. Like, if I followed you around for 3 or 4 days,
you're going to take on my traits.
You didn't know I was there. I could tell you what tomorrow was going to look like for you. I can tell you how pissed off you were going to be or how moderate you'd be. I'd tell you whether or not you had needed coffee to get out of bed. Like I could tell you almost anything about you by watching the 5 people that you interact with the most.
Yeah. You want to be a millionaire? Hang out with 5 millionaires. I guarantee you'll be on your way.
You won't have a choice is the thing. They don't hang out with less than because they know. And it's not this is where people get things twisted. This is not an elite status. This is, I don't need your bullshit in my life because I'm going somewhere. So unless you want to come up here with me, it's not about the money. It's about the mindset.
You're either going to support me. Well, here's the thing. If you don't have people in your 5 friends, or some call it a circle, if you don't have people in your circle that are pushing you, calling you out on your bullshit, who are inspiring you, motivating you, pushing you along, telling you can, positive affirmations. If you don't have that circle, you don't have a circle at all. You have a cage. Brother, he wrote cage, and it's true. It's a fact. Like, look around at the 5 people that you associate the most with, whether it be in person, text messages, whatever, right? Phone calls. Look at the 5 people and ask yourself, what are these people doing with their life? Are they building something? Are they creating? Are they happy? Are they joy? Do they have good mental health? Do they have good behaviors? Do they have this? Or are they constantly in and out of trouble, in and out of toxic relationships, complaining, blaming other people, just all this negativity? Are they that? Because I promise you, whether you think it or not, whether you know it or not, if you're around that, you will be that, period. Hang out in the barbershop long enough, what happens? What happens? You get a haircut.
The thing I want people to understand, that people talk about this elite. Sure, they are elite because millionaires a mindset.
It is.
It's not easy. You got to go through a lot.
I'm a millionaire because I have that mindset. I might not have that in the bank account, but I am a millionaire.
But I guarantee if you, with the mindset, when you shift and you put yourself in a perspective where you know it's there, you just have to find a way to get it. It's almost like having a credit limit that you can't touch until you've built something. So if I went in and I told you, look, if you do these 10 things and you do them right, in 3 years, you'll be a millionaire. Would you do them? 1,000%, right?
I think everybody would.
Now, here's the problem. What I didn't tell you is all the bullshit you're going to have to deal with. I just told you things you're going to have to do, not what else happens with it.
Yeah, most people.
And what happens is someone gets kicked in the face and all of a sudden everything changes.
It's I like you said it's a mindset, because Will Smith talks about how he wrote himself. He started in acting. He was trying to get it. He didn't have his first gig yet, and he wrote himself $1 million check, and he put it in his wallet. And it was like a year later he got his first role in the movie, and the payment that he received of that movie was $1 million.
And this is manifestation, and everybody out there thinks people are fucking crazy for it. Don't bleep that out. I do not care. You're not fucking crazy if you manifest. This is not an easy thing to do.
Nope.
Meditating every morning, finding time for yourself, being a little bit selfish and making sure you're taking care of things that you need to take care of to get a hold of your dreams is possible.
I think it goes without saying, because we've said it a lot. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you are. And I would say all of us at one point, and maybe most of you out here listening, are not happy with what you are, because you haven't got to the point of, you haven't got to your goals yet. You haven't got to where you want to be yet. You haven't all these other scenarios, but you don't get what you want. You sit around and wishing for things that you want is never going to make them happen. You need to wish for who you need to become in that. Like, change who you are, and the rest will just come, period.
Somebody the other day said, I'm just not happy with my life. I said, okay, where do you want your life? Well, I don't know. Well, there's your fucking problem, dude.
If you don't have a clear-cut answer to that, you haven't even begun.
It's basic, common sense. If you don't know where you're going, don't be surprised that you're lost. Period.
GPS, people. GPS. And the GPS in this scenario is you don't have a goal list. You don't have a daily, weekly, monthly, 5-year goal list wrote down. Then what are you really doing?
So you can let pain be the price of your admission. Absolutely. If you're still struggling out there, then you haven't hit bottom yet. Now, you don't have to hit it to get there. You can realize.
You can learn from our mistakes.
You can realize that it still is possible. You just got to get hungry for it. Like, when you want something bad enough, like, people will deal with their job for so long, and then they know they want more,
But they ain't.
But they don't do anything about it,
ain't
and then
gonna
they
take
get
that job.
fired and they panic. But then something shifts and they end up in this amazing job.
And they're like, I should have did this a long time.
Right.
Yep.
It's because you just didn't want it bad enough. So that you need to be desperate
Everything
for.
you ever wanted was just on the other side of fear.
Because desperation's a mindset too.
All right, guys. Have a great week. Like, subscribe, share us with your friends. Let them know that we are I don't even know what we are. We just talk hard, okay?
We are a podcast, though, not a media channel yet.
We're not on news yet. Have a great day. Love you.